October 21st. Tonight, the fire is 206,667 acres and 55% contained. Tonight, we'll hear from Incident Meteorologist Dan Bird. We'll go to Operations Section Chief Paul DeMerico. We'll hear from Canyon Lakes District Ranger Katie Donahue. We'll get an update from Poudre Valley Rural Electric Association and conclude with Incident Commander Dan Dallas and then answer some of your questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Incident Meteorologist Dan Bird.
All right, good evening, everyone. Lots of weather to talk about this evening. For today, we had some pretty strong winds over the fire, and these strong winds are going to continue overnight tonight. Currently have a red flag warning that's in effect until 8 in the morning. Saw some gusts up to about 50 miles per hour over the western portions this afternoon, and those winds are going to continue pretty much above 8,000 feet over the bulk of the fire overnight tonight. Could see some gusts to 60 miles per hour over this region of the fire overnight. Some decently gusty winds the further east you get. Could see some gusts 30 miles per hour as you get further to the east. Another big thing is that the relative humidities today were in the teens to 20% range, and these poor relative humidities are going to continue through much of the night. So it's with the combination of the strong winds and the poor relative humidity recoveries, we do have a red flag warning, and once again that continues till 8 in the morning. As we progress into tomorrow, the gusty winds are going to continue in the morning hours, and the lower H's will continue through about noon. But as we get into the afternoon hours, a cold front will move in kind of from the northeast to the southwest across the fire, and the winds are going to relax through the afternoon hours, and the RHs are going to rise through the day. Another thing is there's going to be a lot of smoke over the fire tonight also. That's shading from the East Troublesome fire. As we get into Friday into Saturday, it looks like Friday night we could see another round of pretty strong winds over the fire, although the relative humidities will not be quite as low as what we're seeing tonight, 35 to 45% range, but still going to see some pretty strong winds Friday night into Saturday. Then things really change as we get into Saturday night. Could see a little bit of a mix of rain, snow, especially over the range here beginning Saturday evening and then turning to all snow Saturday night. Temperatures are going to get really cold. It looks right now that most of the fire is going to see at least some accumulating snowfall as we get into Sunday. Temperatures are also going to be very cold on Sunday. Highs are going to generally be in the teens across all of the fire from on Saturday or on Sunday and Monday, with overnight lows falling into the single digits. So very cold conditions along with the snow on Sunday. And then Monday and Tuesday, though, temperatures are going to begin to warm up, especially on Tuesday. And it looks like the snow will end sometime Sunday evening, with drier conditions moving in Monday and Tuesday. And the one thing to keep in mind, although we're going to see quite a bit of snowfall this week, and it really looks like as we get into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, to late next week, though, looks like upper-level ridging is going to reestablish itself over the region, and the dry conditions are going to return. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. That's all I have. Appreciate your time.
Before you get to Paul, I was looking right at the sheriff and forgot to add that the Sheriff Justin Smith will be here right after Paul. So with that, Operations Section Chief Paul DeMerico.
Yeah, good evening, Paul DeMerico, Operations Section Chief. Sound like a little bit of a broken record going around the west side up into the north, but that's a good thing because it's looking really good. We continue to monitor certain areas, especially south of Bel Air Lakes, just due to the we call it a dirty burn, with a lot of the fuels in there didn't fully consume, so it continues to put up a little bit of smoke. We do have resources in that area, but we do not expect any concerning fire behavior coming out of this area south of Bel Air Lakes. As we move around, we continue to lines continue to hold and looks really good. I do want to talk a little bit about the CSU campus. We continue to have a structure protection group in there with miscellaneous resources, primarily wildland fire engines and a few structure engines. What they're doing in there is continuing to mop up around the infrastructure in that area, just making sure it's secure and we don't get any reburn potential. I'm moving down in what we call Division Tango, which is the north side of this fire when it blew out a week ago, last Wednesday, when it made a significant run. We continue, for the most part, to be largely successful in here, keeping this fire where it's at. We did some burnout operations on our indirect line to secure that. We also have a combination of hand and dozer line in there to continue to make sure that fire doesn't progress any further north. We do have a little bit of line in here we haven't completed yet just due to inaccessibility, but there's been no movement on that. We will get line around it. It's just taken a bit to secure all that. We did add some containment down on this side of the fire, just west of County Road 27 today. So from here all the way down to what we call a drop point, and it's 455 down in this area, just north of Masonville. That's showing a contained, we're showing that as contained. Moving over to that spot fire that occurred, we do have boots on the ground, firefighters all the way around it. We were able to pick that up direct. Looking really good, and we hope to show containment on that here in the near future, as early as tomorrow. We did get some folks inserted into this area, and we have direct hand line and with a combination of dozer line from this point all the way to the east side of Cedar Park, and it ties into existing roads here. So the fire's been picked up direct in that area. We don't expect any more movement here to the south. We do have a combination of direct and indirect and a bunch of different tactics that we're utilizing around the storm, mountain, and the retreat area. And that's due to the terrain that we're facing. And the folks that live in that area understand that it's up and down steep cliffs and some pretty tough terrain to navigate. So what we've done is put some indirect line in, and the fire is going to end up backing down to County Road 43. But what we have is good structure protection in place. We're fully confident in the fire coming back and down to the road, and we're going to stay even with it while simultaneously protecting structures as that fire backs down the road. Moving over into a little bit farther to the west. Currently, we're looking at, folks are familiar with the North Fork Trail. We're trying to keep fire north of the North Fork Trail and stay even with it as it progresses down towards the Bulwark Ridge. I do want to talk a little bit about the smoke that we saw today. We are producing light to moderate smoke on our fire, but the bulk of the smoke that you saw today was from the troublesome fire. I know that it was fairly visible, and due to that smoke layer, we did have to shut down air operations because the visibility did become fairly poor. And thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Paul. Next up is Sheriff Justin Smith.
Thank you, Paul. A good update on what you guys are seeing on the fire in total. First thing for the community, I just want to point out that we did hit another mile mark today, as I'm told, is day 70 since this fire began. So it has been a long haul. A lot of folks impacted for quite some time, and I'm very pleased to be able to share with you that this does feel like a turning point. The last 48 hours, while there's certainly no promises, the 48 hours have been very good. And as we get through there, the first thing I'll point out, it's allowing us to fulfill one of the promises I recently made to the residents who've been impacted, mainly step over to the east side of the fire over here. I had told you that as they really got this spot buckled up, that was going to allow us to get a lot of folks back into their beds. And tonight, there's a lot of residents in Larimer County who are going to be able to put their head on their own pillow for a change, and that's really a good thing. First of all, on that north end, that general Wrist Canyon area, we're able to ease the restrictions, the evacuations to voluntary up there so the residents can get back into that area. We completely opened up the stuff up by Lorry State Park. All restrictions are lifted there. And then if we're not there, we're in the process of getting down to the Inlet Bay area, being able to roll that at this point back to voluntary. I know there's a lot of plans going. I don't know if we've been able to quite pull the trigger, but we're continuing to look at all the stuff east of there to Masonville, and then Masonville down County Road 27 back down to Highway 34. I don't think we're quite there, but we're getting very close. So first of all, I'm pleased that we're able to get people back into their homes. Along with that, we continue to work with residents in the area who are still a little bit inside that restricted zone. When possible, we're working to get them back in. I was able to come out to the ranch a little bit earlier and see the animal operations that are out here. Everything dealing with shelter pets, etc. The Humane Society has been working with, but out at the event center, a combination of the county event center staff, my sheriff's posse, mounted posse that has stock trailers, and a tremendous number of volunteers that have come out just across the way from where we're at, are tending to those animals. And I can tell you, it looks a little bit like a Noah's Ark in there, but they're doing a tremendous job taking care of those who have been pushed out. So that's where we are on the evacs. I sure hate seeing the smoke, but for a change, it's not us giving the smoke. We're receiving some other smoke that's out there. Damage assessment teams, tremendous progress on damage assessment over the last 24 hours. And the rough number I have from emergency management is in that last push. I understand this to be from last Wednesday through today. They believe there's 190 structures that were damaged or destroyed. And the estimates that are about 1/3 of those, or around 60, likely are actual dwellings, and that doesn't mean they're permanent dwellings. So they've got a tremendous percentage of those done on those assessments. And not only are they completed with them, but they're also making notifications of property owners. So know that process is working through as well. So far, folks are getting notified of that, and it's a combination of the official notification along with the follow-up of how those things are done. And certainly if your structure, your property was damaged or destroyed, by having that official documentation the county's rolling out, that allows you to get working more with your process, with your insurance company if you're affected there. Along with that, I just want to point out, having been up, I got a chance to get up on the spot today and see the tremendous work that is and continues to be done by all kinds of crews. And with that, that the utility companies, Poudre Valley REA, is doing a tremendous amount of work in the area to get lines restored. And I believe they're working on getting Otter Road, getting power back up in there. I don't know how long that's going to take, but I see their crews all over. They're doing a lot of active work, because I know a lot of residents are asking if they're back in, or as they're getting back in, when's my power come up? So they're definitely working those things. I've seen Excel in the area as well, working on gas lines, etc. So I know we're getting those pieces done. When it comes to the Poudre Canyon, we haven't seen an official opening, but I believe we are very short from being able to reopen the Poudre Canyon. Over the last few days, the closure up there has not been based on fire activity. Fire activity has actually been down and manageable, but it was the finishing of power lines. And again, a tremendous amount of work being done by Poudre REA, along with a lot of contractors they brought in. So we look forward to getting, let me get back up here, getting Highway 14 open back up. Along with that, I just want to point out that as we're seeing this go a good direction for Larimer County, finally seeing a shift, and we feel like we're ahead of it. There's still heat around here. They're still definitely working those areas. I know there are residents who have asked, well, the fires come through, how come I can't get back to my property? One of the things I'll point out is it's easy to go and look at where the infrared shows a heat, but even those heat signatures don't show you all the fires that are burning back in here that are a little smaller. And so understand there's still fire crews very active and mop up through those areas. The first focus was getting those areas open for the damage assessment. And please trust that as soon as we possibly can, we're going to work to let you get back into your properties. But there's some areas we're still a little ways away from. We have been continuing to talk to Sheriff Pelley in Boulder County and his staff, because I know they've had some real challenges with the Cowwood fire today, and understand they've been increasing some of their potential evacuations down in the Lyons area. So that area is still getting worked. I've been in touch with Sheriff Scrotland over in Grand County, and he was worried about us, but because of the size of our fire, but he's got a lot of fire activity. And as Paul mentioned, that's what put that smoke out. So I just want to reiterate, yeah, we are seeing smoke. It's dropping in on us. But thankfully, that smoke is not off of our fire to a great degree. That's pretty much it on the updates that we have. Again, as we can progress at getting folks back in, we're going to continue with that. We appreciate everybody's work on this and people's patience. I know some folks are feeling like they're to the end of the rope. I get it. But we are getting you back in. We're getting those repopulations. And we certainly welcome, we thank the crews that are out here and this team and the amazing work that they're doing. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. Next up, we have Canyon Lakes District Ranger Katie Donahue.
Good evening. My name's Katie Donahue. I'm the Canyon Lakes District Ranger on the Arapahoe and Roosevelt National Forests and Pawnee National Grassland. And I just want to shout out to the sheriff, you guys. I don't know if you could hear this out in Facebook world, but he was just keeping his train of thought over a really loud car alarm for several minutes. So we've always seen him keep his cool in difficult situations, and he just proved it again. So today has been a difficult day for a lot of folks, and not just on our fire. And that's part of what I want to talk to you about. Some of you may have noticed that the forest closure has expanded. So for those of us who've been dealing with Cameron Peak for several months, you've seen our closures expand and contract depending on what's happening with the fire. I know a lot of folks were really looking forward to the possibility of the north end of the district being able to be opened because of slowing activity on the Mullen fire and all the containment that's been done on this fire. But instead, we've actually taken a precautionary measure to expand the closure on the forest. So at this time, all of the Canyon Lakes Ranger District, so that's National Forest lands in Larimer County, as well as those in Boulder, Gilpin, Clear Creek, and a little bit of Jefferson County. So basically, all of the Front Range portion of the Arapahoe and Roosevelt National Forest are closed. I know that seems really extreme, and I know that it's getting into second rifle this weekend, and there's a lot of folks that had plans, and we're hoping to get out. But what's happening right now on the forest, guys, is we have had just an incredible increase in fire activity over the last week. So you've heard a couple people mention the smoke that's coming over from the East Troublesome fire. That fire started in the last week. We've also had 2 start on the forest in the Boulder district, the Cowwood fire and the Left Hand fire. And then we also still have activity in the Williams Fork fire, which started the same day as the Cameron Peak fire. And right now, we just really can't afford to have additional fires start. So the point of this closure is to reduce the risk of additional fires starting. I know that a lot of folks go out and use the forest responsibly, and I know that feels extreme, but right now we've got so many resources out here on the ground and they're so stretched, we just can't afford to take that risk. So I appreciate your patience, and I understand that there's lots of folks who will have to change their plans accordingly with that. I know that we've had some questions from residents who live in and around National Forest about how that affects them. For those who've been dealing with this fire, nothing's changed for us. So you're going to continue to work with the Sheriff's Department to get through closures, make sure that you're working with the county to get credentialing if that's what you need. And that process hasn't changed even though some more districts have been closed. So again, thanks for your patience. Please check our website and you get more information about what is open on National Forest lands. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Katie. I have an update from the Poudre Valley Rural Electric Association. So power has been restored to the Buckhorn Ranch in Glades West subdivisions. Power should also be restored to Redstone Canyon tonight. Poudre Valley Rural Electric Association also reports that they are making good progress on restoration efforts across the fire. They expect to be able to energize everything west of the fish hatchery along Highway 14 by the end of the week. Another contract crew arrived today to help the existing crews assigned to this stretch of the line. In the Pingree Park CSU area, the new damage includes 9 poles that need to be replaced. Crews are actively working in the area, and Poudre Valley RA expects power to be restored by Friday to the area south of Monument Gulch. Additional crews have also arrived to help rebuild the power line that feeds the Cedar Park area. This line runs through the Bobcat Ridge natural area. They are assessing the damage to the Buckskin Heights area and will provide additional details as they learn them. So thanks to the Poudre Valley Rural Electric Association for that update, and I'll turn it over to Incident Commander Dan Dallas.
Hi, good evening, folks. Dan Dallas, your Incident Commander. So wanted to talk just briefly. I know there's a whole, I've been talking to a lot of the evacuees in the evening at the hotels, and again, our hearts go out to them. You know, they want to get back. And the sheriff mentioned it. It's usually pretty easy for me to talk on these evenings because between the sheriff and other people, they usually answer most of what I'm going to talk about. But so that, you know, the getting back in, the when's my power going to come on, I wanted to give you a little insight into kind of how fast and how kind of complex, but how fast things happen on these. So let's use the example. The sheriff earlier in the evening sent out a message, a post on Facebook and their Facebook page and others, which we copy. Said, I'm gonna lift the evacuation notice, change them to voluntary, and just basically back off of some of the evacuations out here. So then that triggers us to have a quick discussion. I was on the phone with the sheriff's office, said, okay, do we need to turn the power back on? We're under pressure. People, of course, want to get back in. It's going to get cold. We want to make sure our sprinklers are blown out, all those sorts of things. And so that takes about 4 calls, and that's why we have the liaison officers. That's why we have different positions on our team to make all this happen in a pretty urgent manner. And so, that whole thing happened in probably, it was less than a half an hour where we talked and we restored power. We'd moved the barricades there. All the things that are associated, they all cascade. And so gets back again to, I can't say it enough, the sheriff does it much better than I do. All the partners, all the cooperators, all the things that are happening within the local community to make this stuff work is just pretty outstanding. So same thing with this all back here. I know there's some things going around in the Facebook page about getting permissions for wilderness areas. I can just tell you, I'm a land manager myself. I manage 4 wilderness areas. Wilderness, the way to think of wilderness values and management of them, they're just like any other thing, any other resource that we manage. Outfitter and guides and roads and all that kind of stuff, every resource. So it does take some work to get exceptions to these. Has to go to a higher level than Katie can get, and that sort of thing. But I can just tell you that they've been happening really fast. We asked the Forest Service yesterday. Within 2 hours, we had that approval. We asked the Park Service today, and it was late in the day, so it was probably about 6 o'clock. So it's 9 o'clock back in DC. We anticipate hearing before we even come on shift tomorrow the approval for that. So that's kind of the urgency and how fast this stuff is happening. Everything's kind of accelerated in one of these emergency situations. But I can't say enough about the cooperation, particularly with the local folks, about how all this stuff is working. We haven't had a hiccup yet that couldn't be quickly overcome. So with that, I'll stop. I know, Dave, you got some questions that need to be asked of various people.
I do, yeah.
Do you want me to just stand up here and hit me with mine?
The next up we have for questions would be Paul.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, Paul, just a few brief ones. Can you explain if aircraft were used today and how they were used?
So initially this morning, what we first do is we get up, we call Air Attack. He's our supervisor for all of our air resources, and he's our conduit to our ground resources. And he got up in the air. We did initially launch a couple helicopters to provide support in all branches. Quickly, the air became turbulent, and we had to focus on areas that were less turbulent, which would be this side of the fire. So this morning we initially started in here and had to back out. We had to come in and out throughout the day depending on what the air was doing. But as the afternoon progressed, we did not fly any retardant today. It was ordered from our ground resources, but due to the turbulence in these canyons and the air they were facing, plus the inversion that we had this afternoon from the East Troublesome fire, we were not able to use fixed wing today. We did use helicopters as long as we could throughout the day, but not as effective and not as much as we wanted to.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. Can you provide a little more information as you described on that south side there, how fire would back down and you do point protection and would back down to 43. Can you just kind of go over that again?
Yeah, I can try to illustrate that through a narrative. Let me see if I can point at the map a little bit. So we're looking at Storm Mountain, right? So fire likes to run uphill. It doesn't like to run downhill. There are exceptions to that, like the diurnal winds, a Chinook wind, and those types of things. But typically, fire likes to go uphill. So if you have the fire starting already on top, and it slowly backs down typically, it'll eat the vegetation, but it'll come down to where we want it to slowly. When it does that, we're able to stay even with it. What we mean by that is, you've got the County Road 43 right in this area in here. So what we would do is, as the fire comes down to the road, we would add before it hits the road, and we would buffer that road to secure it as the fire comes down. Now on the Storm Mountain, it's really steep in that area, and so we do expect the fire to continue. But we have that dozer line just to the west of the granite filing in here, and what it's going to do, it ties into the old Bobcat burn scar, and our intent is, as it comes down, to stay even with it along that dozer line to deflect it from impacting Storm Mountain, and to also, when it keeps coming, and when it goes into that fire scar, it will slow it considerably, and then we'll be able to work with it as it comes down to County Road 43. So it's a tactic that we typically use when we're working with very inaccessible, rugged terrain, and as that fire backs down, our firefighters will be there to hurt it, essentially.
Okay, thanks for that. And then what are firefighters doing on the interior, in those areas where the fire burned past homes, didn't burn all the structures, and so what are our firefighters doing in those areas?
We have our structure protection groups mostly focused on that, and just it's important to discuss that. I think Sheriff Smith mentioned that earlier. When it's going through, when the fire goes through, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything in that path has been impacted. A lot of times the structures within that red area in here, a lot of them are still standing. So what our goal is to get in there and access those structures, but to access them, we don't want to have a structure that's in there that's been not impacted to become impacted because we didn't secure that area around it. So what we're doing with our firefighters in there is identifying those areas where the structures are still intact and mopping up around those areas to ensure that the fire doesn't find a way to creep to that structure and or underneath it through root systems and whatnot. So that's what they're doing in there, and they're being really diligent and making sure that day after day we're going in there and double checking those structures that haven't been impacted.
Okay, thanks, Paul. One more question. There's a new thing on that map, that purple circle there. Here by...
well, I'm curious too.
This here.
That is new to me as well. So I don't know what that is. Dan, do you know what that is? I just noticed that myself, so. Oh, that's what it was, yep. So we did get, I just found, I know what it is now. So they mentioned that we did order, I think, an unmanned drone to be able to give us 24-hour, if the crews allow it and we're able to get the manpower behind it, or the person power behind that UAS, to monitor the fire 24 hours a day infrared. And so what that is that's where what that does is that it tells our aircraft that's flying in that area during when we're doing bucket drops or fixed wing, that this area is where the landing site is for that UAS drone. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Thanks, Paul. We got a few questions for the sheriff.
All right, thank you.
I can tell you Paul's fast to pass off that mic.
All right. There's some questions, again, concern from Estes Park about access. What's the access looking like? Are they still going to be able to be getting in and out and that kind of thing? What's the...
Absolutely. So if I understand the question on Estes Park access, we see nothing that's pressing on Highway 34. So Highway 34 is completely open right now, along with the areas up and down the Big Thompson Canyon, allowing access to residents in there. As far as Highway 36, that is a concern, not in the Larimer County side, but down in the Boulder County side because of that potential and that threat they have on the Calwood fire. So I guess one thing I would offer to anybody that's up there is if you can come down Highway 34 instead of Highway 36, that's just going to relieve congestion in the Lyons area, both for the residents and the fire personnel that are working down there. So we encourage you to use 34 if you can, but 36 continues to be open. When we get up on that County Road 43 area between Estes Park and Drake and the Glen Haven, know that there are some areas just in a little ways that aren't under direct threat right now. And when folks come out to our checkpoints and ask about access to those, if we can get you safely in there, we will get you into those to be able to check on things.
There's a number of specific questions about locations, but one is Glade Park. What are we looking at there for a status? And
Let me first address. I kind of gave you a quick overview of where the evacuations were being rolled from mandatory to voluntary, and some of the voluntaries that were being completely lifted. The easiest way to go about that, and to be honest, I learned about 4 or 5 or 6 of those just as I was coming in about an hour ago. Didn't get a chance to scribble it all down, but I can tell you the easiest way for you to get to the very specific information so you can get it accurate and you can get it right. Go to larimer.org, that's the county's website. Upper left-hand side, there's a link for Cameron Peak Fire. You click on that, you scroll down a little ways, and there is a link there that says evacuation maps. Go down to that. If you need to zoom in, you'll see every one of those areas that's under either a voluntary or a mandatory evacuation will be color-coded in there, red for the mandatory, yellow for the voluntary. And then if you click on that specific zone, it will bring up the message that came out from the Everbridge, that call that comes out through NOCO Alert, and will give you the specifics on what's being done there. The other areas that aren't necessarily done yet, I don't think, is that area on County Road 27 south of Masonville. I know we're getting close. I'm not sure if that's been pulled. I encourage you to go to our webpage, find that, and click on it, and it'll give you that information. And if I could, one more bit of a mulligan here. There have been a lot of folks in Storm Mountain have been asking, hey, what's the status up there? Some of the pictures we saw as recent as Saturday morning were extremely concerning. There was massive fire coming off of Storm Mountain. I was able to get up and talk to residents up there this afternoon and then get up on the mountain, talk to the firefighters, look around. Let me just say that it's my understanding we're still at everything I hear is under half a dozen structures in a very limited area, quite a ways up high, a ways off the Cedar Park Drive area that were impacted or damaged or destroyed structures. So for the folks that lost, I understand that's a full loss. And certainly, again, our hearts go out to you. But luckily, given the way that fire came through, those fire crews up there did an amazing job. Those crews that came in off the team were up there. And I'm going to give a shout out to Loveland Fire. I've seen them up there for days on end, and all those folks put a hell of a fight up. There's a lot of structures, by all means, should be gone with the way the fire was. But I saw that hand line that was dug. I talked to folks about what was done to save structures up there. That was huge. And I'm going to say the same on that spot fire up off of Otter and in Redstone. There's a lot of places up there, by all accounts, should have burned the way that fire came through, but for the work of the firefighters that were out there and the work they did to keep that fire beat back from those structures. So go to the website. It'll give you the very specifics on those areas. And a little later this evening, I'll try to put out a little more specific information on those areas and the things that I saw up there to kind of help residents out.
Thank you, Sheriff. A couple other questions. One is, are you still in the process of notifying property owners in the structure assessment, or how's that coming?
Yes, a good follow-up. Just as a reminder, they did a tremendous number, and I don't know if I can say a vast majority, but I think that they've got most of the areas covered that were hit by the fire over the last week. And so that went into the documentation that goes to the county, and they've been making those notifications. And just as a heads up, if you're within a fire district there, we're typically asking the fire chief or somebody with the fire department if they're in a position to make those phone calls. Our reasoning for that is, especially when you get into the volunteer fire districts in these rural areas, y'all are neighbors. And if at all possible, we'd rather have that conversation between neighbors as to what happened, and they'll give you the follow-up information on the way to get with the Emergency Operations Center on other information you're going to need. Or if it's in the parts outside of those fire districts, I've talked to our emergency manager, and she's offered to make those phone calls. Because of the numbers that are out there, we're doing a little bit, I could say, adapting this as we go to find out what works the best for us. First of all, we have to be accurate in these. Secondly, as timely as possible. I don't want any bureaucracy on our part to get in the way. So those calls are in progress. They have a lot of those to get to. And as they're getting a hold of those homeowners, they're making sure they have all the follow-up information they need. So I can't give you an exact number right now, but I know they were working through the day, and they'll be picking that up first thing tomorrow as well.
Okay, thanks for that. And then again, if you want to, there's a lot of specific questions about places. One question we have gotten a couple nights is the status of, there's an evacuation status west of the fish hatchery on 14. Is there any updates on that?
Well, back on Highway 14, just as a quick recap on that, we have things open up to the fish hatchery. From there, we literally have, last time I checked, power company and contractors with trucks in the road, working power poles and lines. So at this point, it's them finishing that work up to get the road open safely. However, if you have a property that's beyond the fish hatchery, don't hesitate to give us a call ahead of time and ask if there's a possibility of getting back. We've worked with a tremendous number of people that simply needed to get back, to deal with water issues, some winterizing. Now, understand that we're limited on time in getting folks in and out, but we're working with folks. So just because you may be in that area, it's closed up there, we're flexible enough right now because there's not a fire danger. It's just that if we get folks in at this point, we've been doing escorts to get folks in and out. Number one, to make sure you get in and out safely, but also for the fire crews that are still in there on a closed road and those utility workers. I really want to make sure we're taking care of them while they're up there. And again, I think we're days away. I can't give you an exact, but I think that's closing in pretty quick to where we can get that opened up, both for residents to be able to get back in and for people that just need to get back and forth.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate that. We just have one more question and this is for our meteorologist, Dan Burt.
I'll pass it off quickly. It's all yours.
Okay. Thank you, Sheriff.
So I guess there was one question on what red flag warning is. Red flag warning just means that the weather conditions are favorable for rapid fire growth. In the example we have today, the red flag warning is for the majority of the fire. For the very strong winds and RHs in the teens and 20% range. Red flag conditions can vary depending on your location, your elevation, and the fuel type. So the red flag conditions can vary between the locations. If you want any more information about red flag warnings, you can Google red flag warnings, or if you go to weather.gov and click on the Boulder Weather Forecast Office, you can kind of read about what the red flag criteria there also if you need to. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. And then I had one more question to answer. And again, we're a lot of questions about donations and how we can help firefighters. So firefighters are well taken care of and well fed. So we don't need any food or donations of stuff or that kind of thing. You can check with the Red Cross and see they're in the same boat. They don't need donations that way, but there may be some other things. You can donate. And then again, given the year and the pandemic, donations are always a challenging thing to manage, but you can imagine this year we can't handle things like food coming in and stuff coming in. So there's local charities and things like that you can look at if you want to see what you can do there. But again, the stuff in food and all that, we really appreciate the thought but we just can't handle those right now. So a really great resource to look at for donations is on the Larimer County website, so check that out. And with that, I'll close it. Our next Facebook Live meeting will be this Friday at 7:30. Thanks a lot.